Hey, welcome back to the Sloth-worx YouTube channel. You've reached part 3 of the video. Time to get this bad boy back running. So start with today, well, in this video, I don't know how many days it's going to take. We're going to drain the gear lube in the lower unit just to make sure, if there's some water in there or whatever. We probably need to look a lot harder at them seals, see if we're going to have to replace them. But that lower unit is going to come down. We're going to get a new water pump impeller put in there. Yeah, we'll start with that. With the fan running down here, there's going to be a whole lot of time lapse and no audio, so get ready. I enjoy a good time lapse. Here we go. First thing I do is I go ahead and trim this motor up. That makes it a whole lot easier to access your vent and your fill screws. Get them broke loose up here where you kind of see what the heck you're doing. And then we'll trim it down and let the gear lube out of it. Disregard this part here for now. We're missing a little stuff in here. That'll be a good wintertime project. It won't affect the handling of the boat, so. Oh yeah. And depending on who put those on, sometimes the easiest or the best way to get them back off of there is with an impact driver. I highly recommend getting a pump style. This is a big 2.5 gallon jug. You don't need anything that big, but they make the same pump for the quart size bottles. It makes life a lot easier. You can use the squeeze tubes. It's pretty much the same procedure. Just fill it up from the bottom, wait for it to come out the top at your vent hole, plug your vent, pull the fill out, stick your plug in there, and you're pretty much done. It's a simple little procedure. Alright, so we got through with the gear lube. It all looked good. Got her filled up. So anyway, this boat, I didn't want the prop to come off, evidently, because I got a Mercury style lock and a cotter key. So what I'm going to do, remove those, and I guess we'll see what surprises wait way down in there. Well, the good news is there's no fishing line. The bad news is that prop shaft seal definitely appears to be breaking down. Now I think, well, I'm not going to say that right now. I was going to say I'm thinking about trying to run it, but I have a feeling when I pull this lower unit down, the seal around the dry shaft is going to be in a similar shape. So we might be putting some seals on this sucker. So to drop this lower unit, these Yamahas anyway, these bolts on this particular model is a 14 millimeter. There's 6 of them. We'll take those off. We're going to drop this trim tab out of here. There'll be another bolt up in there we need to get to. I'll let you know what size that is once we get to it. So I used a 1/2 inch socket to get to that bolt there. That bolt holds this trim tab. You got to get it out of the way to get to that bolt right there. If you don't do this part, you're going to fight this lower unit for a long time, because it just ain't going to come down without removing it. A lot of people get suckered by that one bolt, so make sure you get that. Some of the older Mercuries actually had a bolt back here that you got to watch out for as well. Just a heads up. While we're on the subject of mounting bolts, lower unit bolts, actually any kind of bolts on a boat period, make sure you use some anti-seize or grease or something. I mean, even if it's a freshwater boat, it still keep things from sticking together permanently. One of my back bolts is kind of captured by this hose from the low water pickup. Those would normally just come out. This one did come out, so we're good on there. Get back on that anti-seize or grease subject. If you got bolts threaded up into the aluminum, you definitely want something on there. If they're studs with a nut, I mean, you can get by with skimping on that part. I'll still put something, but that's completely up to you. So what I did, took all the mounting bolts out. Well, not completely out. I loosened these up, but you know, it was a pretty good distance here, but they're still tightened in quite a couple of threads. This lower unit's already starting to separate pretty good on its own. So we're just gonna give her a little tap. And we'll get down here and just kind of lift up on the skeg. And give her a little shake and she'll come down like she's supposed to. If she wants to stick a little bit, you can set your 2x4 on here, like so, and give her a couple of taps. Try to refrain from wedging anything in here. That just doesn't really work out. The other spot, you can kind of set back here, give her a few taps. Usually they'll come loose. If you've used some grease or anti-seize on these little locating pins, there's not a lot for them to stick on. We got all the bolts out on this side. Even this bottom one's not threaded in, it's just sitting there. I've got one bolt left, finger tight. So what I'm fixing to do is grab a hold of this lower unit, support it, pull that one bolt out, and this lower unit ought to just drop straight out of there. Got the lower unit off, no problems. These bolts for that water pump housing, it's 12mm. We'll pull them out and see what kind of shape this impeller's in. Well, I'll tell you, you don't want to see this kind of stuff in your water pump. So you can see on this wear plate, the little shiny spot there, there's no groove. This wear plate is fairly new. I have a feeling I've changed this water pump with the intentions of getting this boat going, and then you know, just ended up parking it again. But there's no groove in there. That's what you want to see. If there's a groove there, you need to definitely replace this wear plate. Another place that'll get a groove is the top of this cap. Can't really see any definite shiny spots in there, but if these ever develop a pretty good groove in them, that's going to make your water pump not run as efficient as it should, and it will cause some overheat problems. So check on that. One thing I absolutely hate about Yamaha is their stupid keyway, and why they can't do something simple like mercury is beyond me. So I'm gonna beat this sucker out so I can look underneath here and look at that drive shaft seal. Surprisingly, the dang drive shaft seal looks like it's in pretty good shape. So we'll go ahead and throw that new impeller in here on the top side. If we end up changing that prop shaft seal later, we can do that while this sucker's on the boat. So here's the old water pump impeller. You see how it's pretty much, it's holding its shape. This blade is a little closer to the center than this one. So what happens, this rubber dries out and it's sat in one position. And these won't spring back very well. I mean, they're pretty hard. They're stuck where they're at. So that's the reason we're changing it. It's not that, you know, it's got too much wear or anything. It's just, it's been stuck in that one position way too long, and it just, it's not gonna work right. So to install a new one, most all manufacturers line up whatever keyway system they use with one of the blades. So we're gonna grab a hold of that blade. Everything, we've lightly greased everything here. We've lightly greased everything inside this cap. Got our fingers on the vein that's got the groove. And we'll slide it down. We know this is our keyway one. We'll line that up. Might take a little fine tuning. There we go. And just slide it all the way down. Now, as that slid down, take your cap, put it on, and you'll notice this little bump out matches that little deal there. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna hold some light pressure on this while we twist the shaft. We're gonna twist clockwise. So all right, I'm hoping the time lapse caught that. But so you just put a little light pressure on here, twist the drive shaft at the same time, and she'll go right up in there like she's supposed to. This is not a huge deal. I mean, it's pretty easy. So we'll get those bolts, we'll get them tightened back up. We'll alternate tightening, crisscross kind of torquing down. And while we're doing that, we'll be turning this dry shaft. We just want to make sure everything stays lined up. So here she is. We lubed that into the dry shaft. We lubed that shift shaft. We lubed these two little locating pins. One of them is right there. That's the bolt there that's kind of captured, but you may or may not have that. So what I like to do is pre-position a bolt on whatever side of this lower unit I'm going to be on. So I'll probably be on this side. So I'm going to set that right there. And I like pulling the cowling off so I can reach right up in here with my thumb and turn this flywheel. If I need to get these splines lined up, I can just reach right up there, turn that flywheel a little bit, get it lined up. If you're dealing with the motor with the, it's extra long or extra long, it helps to have a buddy up there in the top of the boat that can give that flywheel just a little turn. Because, I don't know, 9 times out of 10, you're going to need to turn it. Rarely will it ever just go right up in there. But sometimes it's the small things in life. They don't normally go that easy. Even got the dang shift shaft hooked up in one shot. I think I might have to stop on the way home and buy a dang lottery ticket. That usually doesn't happen. Alright, so what we're going to do now, we got most all our bolts in loosely. This is not tightened up yet. We're going to test and make sure our shift shaft's in the right spot. So that spins like it should, in neutral. Alright, now in reverse, and we're hoping it just goes, yep, it don't spin, we're in reverse. Back to neutral, yep, forward, yep, forward. Alright, so I just like testing that before I get everything buttoned up. One problem you can run into is if that shift shaft isn't all the way engaged, is it'll actually, on some models of motors, come up there, and as you're tightening up your your bolts, that shift shaft will punch a hole in the bottom of your intake. That's a bad day there. You don't want that to happen. So make sure that shift shaft's engaged. And when you're tightening up these mounting bolts, try to tighten them up slowly and evenly. So don't just tighten one up until you suck everything up all the way tight. Just kind of work around and close that gap up. Do a little on each side. Let it come slowly back together. You could put this thing in a bind and risk cracking it. So if you just take your time, snug them up. And once you get them all fairly snug and this groove completely closed up, then you can go around and really torque them. And I still, you know, torque them kind of in a sequence. Don't just run down one side and run down the other. Like do the middle here, do the back over there, the front here, front, you know, and so on and so forth. We did remember to put our sneaky bolt back up in there before we put the trim tab on. Torque tab, whatever you want to call it. We lined this sucker up kind of in the position it was in. That might take some adjustment. This boat doesn't really make much difference because half the time it is not in the dang water anyway. All these are tight, torqued down good and snug. Put some fresh grease on that prop shaft. So we'll start going back together with it. Your thrust washer is going to go first. Then your prop goes on. This particular prop is a pressed-in hub. The new props now are awesome. They've got user replaceable hubs that, you know, either hard plastic or I don't know what that crap is Suzuki uses in theirs, but a bunch of round rods, still replaceable, still pretty neat. Anyway, got that on there. This prop was set up for Mercury, so that's why a Mercury lock washer works on it. So we'll put that Mercury style on there. Put a nut on there. This is a castellated nut. You want those grooves facing out. We're also going to use a cotter key in there. I mean, why not? It's there. If this was just straight up on a Mercury, it wouldn't have a castellated nut. This would just be a lock nut. But I'll snug that down. We'll lock these locks down, put the cotter key back in there, and we'll be done with this end of the motor anyway, for now. So I figured it was story time. This old motor, when I got it, it was hanging under a tree, and motor was locked up. The problem ended up being the oil pump drive gear that would normally be right down in there was frozen into the block. It's still there. What I ended up doing was splitting that case, and there's like a bronze or a brass gear that runs that pump. I was hoping it's going to be like a two-piece plastic deal like Mercury's got, and I could just take it off, but it's pressed on there, and it's used as a spacer. So I ended up dremeling all the gear teeth off of it. So that allowed clearance for this other gear that's up underneath this block off plate. Put that back together, pulled the whole oil system off. I'm not using it. I'm just pre-mixing in the gas. It's super easy. 1 quart of 2-cycle oil for 12 gallons of fuel is pretty easy to remember. You know, if you just add 6 gallons, add half a quart. It's simple. So anyway, got rid of all that. It ran great for years. The last trip, it overheated on me. The problem was, I put this low water pickup on here. Now when I got that thing, I didn't really have a good way to flush it. So I bought this thing, which water hose normally screw in right there. And then it would go over this cone and bungee around that lower unit to hold it on. The problem is, I don't know if you can see that, but there's so much gap around there, it couldn't push water up here, up to the water pump, reliably anyway. So when I had that overheating problem, I installed this little T right here, and basically it's got a water hose fitting on it. So I could just screw the water hose on there, and then I just use that deal just to kind of plug that lower hole so all my water doesn't run out. Unfortunately, I didn't do that soon enough, because Yamaha, I'm pretty sure, uses recycled beer cans, and this whole block, all the water jackets were corroded solid. Like, you couldn't get water through there. So the reason it's got this yellow around there is I pulled the water jackets off, pulled the heads off, manually got in there with a brush and muriatic acid and scrubbed all that stuff out of there, cleaned it up as good as I could, sprayed it with some oh hell, what do you call it, god dang it, like zinc chromate primer. Got new gaskets, bolted it all back together. I'm pretty sure I did that water pump down there about the same time. I don't know what it was. I guess about that time is when we just lost interest in it, and you know, had moving and houses and crap to worry about. From that point on, she's been pretty much sitting. So we're gonna start working on these carburetors. We can get them off of there. Shouldn't be too big a deal. It's Yamaha, so pretty much all the bolts we're gonna need to get to is 10 millimeter. Oh yeah, we ran into another problem. The steering. Oh, it just freed up. God dang. Definitely gonna have to stop and get a lottery ticket now. That bugger was locked up solid earlier. Well, hell, we'll just pull that apart and re-grease it anyway. One more thing I can check off the list. So we got the front cover off, and I've got a suspicion that these were cleaned and put back together and just never ran. Part of that is because there is zero oil residue down in the bottom. That little vent line gets anything that ends up running back up in this plate. So I think they might be clean already. So what I'm thinking is I can get to the bowl drains on this side. Those bowls are pretty much connected. But we can kind of see what we got down in the bottom of those bowls. This side's a little, can't really get to those drains with the fuel hoses in the way. We'll pull that bottom drain out on that other side. If it doesn't have any residue of gas, oil, or anything like that, I might not even pull these off. All right, well, there you have it. That's the bowl drain out of the very bottom carburetor. It's got a little oily residue on it, but it doesn't have anything gummy or anything that I suspect is going to be a problem. So I'm not even gonna pull these off, I don't think. I'll check them other drains just to make sure if they all look like this. We're just gonna send it. Anyway, I think we're gonna end this part off today right here. We got a lot done. Some fire and smoke ought to be happening pretty dang soon. It's a damn good sight right there. I think we'll take her up to the house. We got a water hose there. Tomorrow we'll try firing her up, see what happens. Alright, so today's the day. We're gonna give her a shot. Got an umbrella set up for a little bit of shade. If you haven't been around aluminum boats, they get hot in the sun. Like, burn your ass up hot. Especially when there ain't no wind blowing. So what we got going here is our little test tank. It's a 3-gallon tank. Already got some 2-cycle oil in there. Gonna add a little fresh gas. And we're gonna put a little quick clean. That right there. This is some great stuff. So we're gonna mix this up double strength. All right. So it says 1 ounce treats 5 gallons. We're gonna put at least 1 ounce in here, maybe 1.5 ounces. Well, that ought to do it. The 2-cycle oil, I didn't quite double the amount of oil that should be in there, but I did add a little extra. This is what we got. Portable tank. It's hooked up. We've looked for leaks at all our carburetors, our fuel lines. Got the water hose hooked up. You don't want to forget your kill switch. I still got to put a new cord on it. We're going to need that or we ain't going to make no smoke and fire happen. I guess we'll just see if she turns over real quick. Oh, that's a good sign. I think that choke's done what it needed to do. There we go. She starts and runs. We've got a very concerning problem though. The fact that she ain't pissing no water. Well, I just see why. Because I didn't turn the water on. Let's go try that again. Okay. So now we got water going to it. We'll try this again. stream of water now. Try and run most of that 3-gallon tank through there, because I wanted to get that quick clean in there, just kind of help break up any of the sticky oil residue that's left. And then of course definitely want some fresh gas and oil getting on all our bearings and getting where it needs to go. So we're gonna let it sit here just idle along as long as it ain't overheating. That gas. There we go. Finally cleared out some of that old crap. Now she's shooting a stream of water out there like she should be. Overall, she seems to be idling good. Well, as good as you can get with a 2-stroke. A little extra oil in there, definitely loading up the plugs if I sit here and just straight up idle for too long. But yeah, I think she's gonna go. Got that got some water flow going through there. The heads are nice and cool. Of course, this old motor, I'm pretty sure I deleted most of the thermostat. Just left the plate with the hole in it for a little bit of restriction. But yeah, she's pissing water good. Sounds pretty decent at an idle. So I think we'll do a little kill switch test. Oh yeah, that works. You definitely want to test that periodically. Fires right back up like a champ. Sending some smoke signals, that's a good thing. Well, I can't think of any better way to finish off this video than with the engine running in the background. You can probably barely hear me. So yeah, we'll get this cover put back on, and got to fix this jack plate pump. I bought a new jack plate pump, but I still need to redo all the wiring and stuff. So that's going to be our next little project. If you stuck around this long, you know what's fixing to happen. Anyway, thanks for watching. You gotta love ANICs. You can just guess what my dang phone case looks like right now.